Recommend, sponsored by the Spaw. I'm your host, Carrie Hyde. Tonight, we are so very, very fortunate to have world-renowned veterinarian Dr. Judy Morgan with us. Hi.
Howdy. Thanks for inviting me back. I'm happy to be here.
Are you kidding? I could talk to you for years and days. In fact, before I started this, we kind of were already going off on something. And then Lori, who is behind the scenes, who helps me with all the tech stuff and keeps me going, she's like, "Are you guys ready?" I'm like, "Yeah, we should probably start," because I could talk to you forever, because it's just such a breath of fresh air to have a veterinarian who is willing to speak up for these animals. So just for the listeners, I want you to know that Dr. Morgan and I are going to be talking about a couple of different things here. But if you have any questions, just type them in. It doesn't have to be on topic. Don't worry, we will flow very well. Dr. Morgan knows her stuff. She's studied for a very, very long time. So you're not going to throw her for a loop. So you can definitely ask any questions that you want. But we're going to talk a little bit before we went live. I always ask the vets, what do you want to talk about? Good evening, Pam. I always say, what do you want to talk about? So that, if there's something they want to get off their chest, and Dr. Morgan said, yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about some flea and tick products. And I'm with you on that. I don't know if you know this. I didn't mention it to you before we went live, but I am very confident that my dachshund died from flea and tick medication back when I was working for veterinarians. So I'm very passionate. Okay. This is going to probably go on a while. This is my kitty that almost died. It was one of my rescue cats, and now I have 4. But anyway, sorry about that. But so I'm pretty confident that my dachshund died from it, because she just kept having seizures after seizures. This is back when I was a vet tech. So we just kept putting that stuff on, because every vet that I had or two, it didn't even get brought up. And stupid me, it didn't even occur to me at the time, because we're going back 25 years. So, but now I look back on it, she had gone through every single test, and they never found out what was wrong with her. So
exactly. Nothing shows up on the testing.
No. And that that's the key right there, right? Why are you ruling out something that's being put on an animal every month if nothing else leads you down that path? It's so frustrating. So
they get classified as idiopathic epilepsy, even if it's in a breed that is not prone to it. And, the veterinarians who are arguing for the use of these chemicals are saying, well, it may lower the seizure threshold potential, but that means the dog or the cat was already prone to having seizures genetically. And this just lowered the threshold. So it allowed them to have the breakthrough seizures. And I mean, I just about lost my mind a couple of weeks ago on a consultation that I was doing. And the dog started having seizures. About a 4-year-old dog started having seizures, and the dog had been on, do you remember, was it I think it was on NexGard for a while, and it started having these seizures. And so she did the complete workup, the lab work, the urinalysis, the thyroid, endocrine testing, tested for toxins, did an MRI, did a spinal tap. I mean, she did everything. She really was worried about her dog. Of course, everything came back negative. So the neurologist declared that it was idiopathic epilepsy. And she said, well, could it be related to the chemicals that I've been using on the dog, or, feeding the dog every month? And the neurologist emphatically, and her traditional veterinarian both emphatically said, no, not related. And then when she said to them, well, I'd like to switch to a more natural flea and tick preventative, what could I use? They both said, oh, none of that stuff works. No, this doesn't have anything to do with that. We would recommend that the only products that would be safe for your dog are Bravecto and NexGard, and don't use Trifexis because as heartworm and flea, because that's been associated with seizures. It's like the warning label on these products, on Bravecto, on NexGard, says use with extreme caution in animals who have seizures or neurologic issues. And here we have a neurologist saying, go ahead, use it. I wanted to pull every hair out of my head. And I'm saying to the client, well, I'm just going to tell you, avoid. And so I gave her a long list of things she can use for flea and by the way, she doesn't even live in a high flea and tick area. She was just using them because these veterinarians are so hyped up on every dog, every cat should be on flea and tick prevention and heartworm prevention every month, all year long, no matter where you live. It makes zero sense. Zero sense. And as much as veterinarians want to say that it's not about the money, I'm sorry. Somebody brainwashed you somewhere along the way when you're living in Nova Scotia, where they don't even have heartworms, and yet you're telling your clients that they have to give a heartworm preventative all year round every month because it'll help prevent intestinal parasites too. What? Have you ever heard of running a stool sample and an area where they don't have fleas, they don't have ticks, or the animal has never had a flea or a tick on them? These things do not prevent the fleas and ticks from getting on them. That's the other thing that people have to understand.
They don't know that.
If you've never found a tick attached to your dog, you just don't live in a high tick area. You don't need to use all these chemicals. If you haven't had a flea problem, you don't live in a high flea area. You don't have to use all these chemicals. I live in the South. I don't use all these chemicals. It's crazy. So I'm just, I'm having like a critical mass meltdown in the past couple weeks, because like literally the first thing that I saw, I don't know why I picked up my phone first thing this morning, and I don't know why I turned on Facebook first thing, but literally the first thing I saw was a really long post from a traditional veterinarian. It was actually posted by one traditional veterinarian and shared by another traditional veterinarian. And now it's kind of going a little bit viral about how these products are so safe and everybody should be using them, and, blah, blah, blah. And literally it's 7 o'clock in the morning and my blood pressure is through the roof. There's steam coming out my ears. And I'm like, how fast can I? And I don't even want to get in the conversation anymore because I'm tired of them not being open to listening or even thinking about having a discussion. It's so frustrating.
I always say, like, what will happen if you stop giving it? What will happen? Because I had a neurologist. When you said neurologist, my ears went up, because I had a client a while back whose dog had so many seizures that she was wearing a seizure bell. Literally, like, she was just having just massive seizures all day long, constantly. She was on phenobarbital. They had tried everything. She was now this drugged up dog in the corner, still having seizures, by the way. And I suggested to her to stop the flea and tick stuff. And she says, well, the neurologist says it has nothing to do with it. And I said, well, what will happen if you stop giving her the flea and tick stuff? And she thought, well, nothing. And so I said, why don't we just try it? And I kid you not, she stopped it. Those seizures each month would get less and less and less and less and less and less. She went back to the neurologist, told the neurologist what she was experiencing. The neurologist said, and this is per the owner, so I don't want to throw a neurologist under the bus, but the neurologist says, well, that just must be the phenobarbital starting to work. That the dog had been on for a year. And it's just...
Unfortunately, the anti-seizure medications do not work very well against these neurotoxins that are in these chemicals. So I see cases where they're loading them up. They're generally on 2 to 3 anti-seizure medications. And even with all that on board, they're still having breakthrough seizures. So we still can get clusters breakthrough. We can still have, oh, well, he's only having, 1 a week now, where he was having 3 a day. Great.
Yeah.
And a lot of these dogs, once they're given, Valerie Palmieri, who started the whole survey on isoxazoline use that we did and published, her dog at 1 year of age was given 1 dose of Bravecto, and within a few hours she had him in the emergency room, seizuring uncontrollably. That dog is now 6 years old, still is on anti-seizure medication, still can't walk a straight line. He walks like a drunk and still has seizures. 1 dose. And this dog just had the worst adverse event. And veterinarians are like, no, not really. Like, it happened literally within a few hours. And I can't even get these veterinarians in these arguments. I can't even get them to take the time or even bother to look at the FDA or EMA reports with hundreds of thousands of adverse event reports. And we know that only about 1% get reported. So if hundreds of thousands are 1%, we have millions of animals in trouble.
Millions.
Millions. So to me, not being willing to actually ask a question, to just blindly say, this is all perfect, this is all wonderful, there's no problem with any of it, especially when you have the neurologists on board saying, oh no, it's all fine, go ahead and use it. So that, to me, if you're not willing to take the time to ask the question and look at what's out there, look at, and what they say is, well, correlation doesn't mean causation.
I'm so tired of hearing that thing.
You know what?
I hear it all the time.
It's just, but start asking
everything
questions.
is through an observation. That's what I always, everything we do, science is all a beginning of an observation that someone had, and then they start to do the studies and the testing. So when people say that to me, I'm like, are you crazy? Everything is by observation. We observe it and we test it.
When we had the excess vitamin D in the pet food a couple of years ago that was causing all these animals to go into kidney failure and die of kidney failure, right. It took a lot of people observing, a lot of veterinarians observing, hey, we have more kidney failure cases than we did.
Yeah.
Hey, there seems to be a connection here. Like there had to be enough animals that died. There had to be enough reports of deaths. There had to be enough reports of animals that were going into kidney failure. And then enough questions asked to say, what's the common denominator here? Like, that's how things get found. Right. So if they're willing to ask the question, oh, there's too much vitamin D in this food. Animals are dying of kidney failure. We should recall the food. We're giving these drugs and animals are having neurologic reactions or dying.
Yeah.
Maybe we should ask more questions. The veterinary world is not willing to ask, the traditional veterinary world is not willing to ask these questions. They're not willing to dive in. They're not willing to do some studies. I mean, and they yell at me and say that our survey was not scientific. It was not a double-blinded study. Yet what we got back in that survey was 66% of the animals that were given these neurotoxic chemicals had side effects. 2/3.
Wow.
2/3. So maybe our population was a little bit skewed because of how we got our people to, I mean, if somebody's answering that from my page, they're probably more holistic. But on the other hand, they're also, if they're answering it from my page, they might be people who never used a flea and tick chemical. So in their case, they're like, yeah, never used one. So no, it was not a perfect, it was not a study where we set up and said, oh, here's 100 dogs we're going to use this on. Here's 100 dogs we're going to use a placebo on. Let's see who has what happen.
Right.
Those studies are expensive and hard to do, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be asking questions. And
it's just too many. It's like I told you, I have red tags on dogs coming in. I have so many dogs with seizures. It's just too many for us. And it's all across this whole country. It's not just one grooming shop in Orange County. It's not just one veterinarian. It's so across the board. Have you heard of SARDs being connected as well?
We are seeing so many weird connections. So there was an ophthalmology conference, a world ophthalmology conference a couple of years ago. And I'll be darned if I think it's been taken down because I cannot find this lecture anymore, where they were talking about retinal damage and also damage to the optic nerve, the nerves to the eyes. And I have actually had a couple of cases that have come to me that have given a dose of these neurotoxins and the dogs have developed dry eye, like overnight. They were normal dogs that now are producing 0 tears, which means, basically we had a neurotoxin that attacked the nerves that supply the tear glands. So that's why we get that. So that's why we get these, when we give a neurotoxin or we have an autoimmune problem that is attacking the nerves, particularly if it's attacking the upper end of the body, we get that autoimmune thyroiditis, we get the laryngeal paralysis, we get the dry eye. It's a combination because of all the cranial nerves being affected that a lot of times we will get a lot of things connected. So SARDs is very closely related to endocrine dysfunction as well. And it's because we're getting an autoimmune problem that is attacking multiple systems. So, and could this be related to the neurotoxins in these chemicals? Absolutely. I think it's just one more syndrome that we can see associated with neurotoxins. I think the list is extremely long.
It's just, I had a client, this was about 2 years ago, and I was shocked that her vet didn't tell, I shouldn't be shocked, but her vet didn't tell her to stop the stuff. But she had taken both her dogs. They were both, sorry, for you guys that are listening, I have COVID right now and I have a little bit of brain fog, but she had 2 Australian Shepherds. I'm all, what is that breed of dog? I couldn't think of it. 2 Australian Shepherds, took them to the vet. They gave them Bravecto in the office. The next morning, one of the dogs was completely blind. Just completely, like, couldn't see. It just went, and it was fine. That night, the second dog, same thing. So she's obviously going, what the hell? And she's obviously saying, I think it has to be the stuff you put on them or gave them or whatever. And of course, no, it's not related. There must be something in your house. There must be something.
We have 2 dogs, both given a chemical, and both have the same side effect.
Yeah.
But it's not related to the drug. Like,
so it makes me start thinking that psychologically, because veterinarians have been selling it for so long, that ego is involved here, right? The ego cannot come out and say, I sold you a product that caused your dog to get sick, without feeling like they're going to be blamed. And they would be blamed. And I don't think they should be. I think that, veterinarians are always thinking they're doing the right thing. But do you think ego, I mean, what is it that would make a vet go,
so
can't be that?
It's this chain that we have. So we get the dog or the cat who blindly trusts the owner, as right. we're their pack leader.
They don't have much choice.
So yeah, they don't have much choice. So you hand it to me, you tell me I should eat it, I'm probably going to eat it, although some of them don't. And then we have the pet owner who goes to the doctor, who is wearing the white coat, has the diploma on the wall, and is supposed to know everything. So we put our blind faith in them. And they, in turn, put their blind faith in the FDA and the drug company. The drug company reps come in and say, well, we have FDA approval, it's fine. If FDA says it's good, it's good. And we're learning more and more about what the FDA does and does not do, which there's a lot that they don't do.
Right.
There's a lot of steps that they skip. And it kind of depends it kind of depends where they are with things. Like, sometimes they pass things through really fast, and other times they make it really difficult. And I think that we should look more, although the EMA did approve these as well, but for some things, I think we should look at Canada and the EMA, because I think they're a little stricter than we are here on a lot of things. Like, there are some food ingredients, there are some chemicals or drugs that are allowed in this country that have been banned in other countries. And I think we should pay attention when they're banning things that we're still saying are okay. But I think it just goes up the chain. And I think that for the busy veterinarian, particularly a traditional veterinarian who doesn't really question what's being shown to them, I think they have blind faith in the drug company and they have blind faith in the FDA. And I don't think they should. I think, and I get it, especially right now, veterinarians are incredibly busy. They're overloaded. They're overworked. There's not enough of them. I get it. But you still have to question. Like, if somebody came to me with a new drug, the first thing I'd say is, what are the side effects? What do I have to watch for?
Yeah. But
how many dogs was this tested on? Give me the studies on how you got this passed. Like, and a lot of the studies are very skewed because you can make anything be the way you want it to be. But still, that's the first thing I want to know.
Yeah. And then as a veterinarian, don't you think their job is to then pay close attention to their clients? Like, I'm using a new drug. I need to really pay attention because, frankly, I don't think the stuff that goes in our mouths that the FDA does such a great job. Can you imagine how little they do for our pets? Like, we can't I can't believe anyone would blindly just follow a new drug. We saw that happen with Apoquel. Apoquel ended up on the market so fast. And then how many animals are still so sick from it?
Well, and there's still, Apoquel is handed out like candy. Apoquel is, is a bad drug. It is. My husband and I were just having a conversation about this yesterday or the day before about, people who are on immunosuppressants, animals who are on immunosuppressants. How long do they have to be on that before the cancer pops out? And so it's but the traditional veterinary community loves Apoquel. They hand it out like candy. And I'm amazed. Like, I see people's records where it's like, oh, my dog went in because it was itching, and the first drug they prescribed was Apoquel. Like, they did nothing out. Like, that was the first thing prescribed.
Yeah.
Why do you go there? And again, I think they're not willing. They're not even. It's, you give a dog Apoquel for a year, and then it doesn't have it for a year, and then he has a cancer. Most veterinarians are not going to go, ooh, maybe I caused that with Apoquel. They're not. It's just not even going to register to them. If you read the studies, even the people that sell Apoquel say, shouldn't be used in animals that have an infection, shouldn't be used in animals with a compromised immune system, shouldn't be used in
all our animals
who have cancer. That's everybody. So, it's just, we're not asking enough questions, and we're not putting one and one together. Like, nobody wants to be the person who handed that little chew to a puppy in the office, and then the puppy starts having seizures the next day or two, and is like little Obi, who I have the videos from Belgium, the poor little Cocker Spaniel puppy that the veterinarian handed him his neck scarred in the office at his first puppy visit. And, he started seizuring. The sister, it wasn't a litter mate, but the other puppy that they bought at the same time, she just got some nausea, just a little off for about a week. But this one developed seizures, and I think we're about a year out now, and he still has seizures. He's still on seizure medication. He's gone from 3 down to 1. But you, as the veterinarian, you don't want to go, oh my God, I did that.
Right.
You just want to look at the owner and go, no, couldn't be related. Well, I had nothing to do with that. He must be genetic.
That's exactly what I think. If we are ever to get the traditional veterinarians to come over, we need to let them off the hook. Like, it's not your fault. It's only your fault because you're putting up this blinder. But it's originally is not your fault. A product came out. You thought it was good. You thought it was going to be good. People wanted it. Fleas can be gross and bad, and ticks can cause disease and tapeworm from fleas and stuff. So it's not a bad thing to want to help the animals, but this blind just completely.
So in my practice, and I guess I'm just stodgy, but in my practice, when a drug rep would come in with something new, I'd say, well, how long has it been on the market? Oh, it's brand new. Okay, come back in 4 to 5 years. Tell me what we got then. I want to know, like, you're coming out with a new vaccine. Great. Let's, and a lot of vaccines have come and gone over the years. The FIV vaccine, FIP, the feline ringworm, like, a lot of these vaccines have come and then left because they weren't really so good. And, a lot of drugs over the years, they come, like, for instance, ProHeart. Got another one that just makes me crazy. ProHeart came. ProHeart killed a lot of dogs. ProHeart got pulled from the market.
I've never even heard of it.
ProHeart, it's the 6-month heartworm injection.
Oh, it's that 6-month one? It's already gone? Yeah. Oh, geez.
No. So it came out 7 or 8 years ago. God, probably longer than that. 10, 12 years ago. As this 6-month injection. It was going to be the be all end all. And everybody loved it because they didn't have to remember to give a monthly pill. And we just sent them a reminder twice a year, and they came in and they got their shot, and that was that. Enough dogs died that it actually did get pulled from the market. The scary thing, and this is where veterinarians make me crazy, the scary thing is that about a year, maybe 2 years later, it came back. And it came back with 0 changes to the drug. 0 changes. The only change was the literature for the veterinarian and the package insert. How many pet owners have ever seen that package insert? None. The pet owners are actually supposed to be given a piece of paper that says, here's the information about this. Before I give your dog, I need permission because here's what it could cause. It's not supposed to be used in really old dogs. It's not supposed to be used in dogs with any liver disease or kidney dysfunction. How many dogs is it being used? I mean, is everybody testing their dog's liver enzymes before they give the drug? No. So it came back as the 6-month injection. I guess it didn't kill enough now the second time around because they didn't pull it. And instead what they did is a couple years ago, they came out with the extended one, which is a 12-month. So once a year now, you can go in and get the injection. And what they did is they upped the dose of moxidectin by 3 times. So now it's 3 times as strong and it lasts for 12 months. Oh, by the way, we got a lot of dogs having problems with this one too, because it's a neurotoxin plus a liver toxin plus a kidney toxin. And veterinarians, particularly in the South, are all over this. Well, you know, we have resistance to ivermectin. We have resistance to milbemycin. This is the only thing that works. Okay. And maybe we kill, you know, a dozen dogs in the practice a year by using it, but for the better good, you know.
Because that's the only thing that they'll listen to is death. And then maybe they'll listen. They don't listen to the seizures, the quality of life that these animals are going to end up living because they were given it. That's what bothers me. It's not, obviously I don't want to see a dog die, but I think the cases of illness and living these horrible lives for years and years and years, it is rampant. It's everywhere. And I blame it completely on what we're feeding and what we're putting in these animals. And it's just, it's so bad.
Well, and something like that, you put in an injection that lasts for 12 months. There's no antidote.
Yeah, and can't stop it.
And you can't get it out. You got 12 months. Yep. You know, people who give NexGard, they're like, well, okay, good. It'll be gone in a month. And then I don't have to worry about it. By the way, it stays in the body a lot longer than that. You know, I gave Brevecto. Oh, crap, I got to wait 3 months for that to get out of the system. By the way, we have people who give 1 dose of Brevecto and a year later, they're still pulled dead ticks off their dogs. It's still in the system.
It's still in there. I can't even imagine saying that even to like myself, like, it'll only be in my body for a month. So if it makes me sick, it'll be over in a month.
Yeah. In a month, I'll feel great. You know, if my liver survives, if my kidneys survive, and if my brain survives.
It's just so awful. That's one of the reasons why. So for those of you who don't know, Dr. Morgan is going to be at our event. We got so lucky to get her to come to our live event that's happening in Orange County. And it's one of the reasons why we called it Redefining Health, because I feel like a lot of times health is determined at how long the dog lives, but we pay little attention to how much they suffer. And so much suffering is going on. The diabetes and the pancreatitis attacks that happen every other week, and the vet visits and I don't know. I feel like we're in the worst epidemic of health in animals that I've ever seen. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think it's just getting worse. Hi, Michelle Allen. I think it's just getting worse is the problem. And we've come to accept, I mean, even in human medicine, we've come to accept that most people are on 5 prescription medications. You know, our pets, we've come to accept, they're going to have allergies. They're going to have IBD. They're going to have pancreatitis. Like, this is all like normal stuff. And the veterinarians are just like, we'll just give you another drug and another drug. And then we'll give you a prescription diet and then another drug. And it's this revolving door of chronic ill health. And we also have now become conditioned to say, he lived a good long life. He lived to 12. You know, or he lived to 10. He had a great life. No. 19 kids, 20, yep. 22.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I hear 10 all the time. Well, he's 10 years old. He's old. And I'm like, he is? No, he's not. I mean, he's looking old and he feels old and he's got arthritis. So he's showing signs of age, but he shouldn't be showing those signs of age at 10 years old. I don't think. I've seen my dogs I have an 11 and a 12-year-old, and they have none of this. And they don't get fleas, and they don't use flea tick products. So it's frustrating. I feel your frustration because before the show, we were talking about how I'm such an advocate for veterinarians because, you know, so much blame gets put on veterinarians, but there is this other side of me that is angry at veterinarians that aren't willing to get their ego put aside and say, okay, I probably gave a drug to an animal. Did you read just recently there was this court case of a nurse who accidentally gave the wrong medication to a patient and the patient died? She immediately went and said, I gave the wrong medication. The hospital actually tried to shove it under the rug and like not say anything. And she was the one that was like, I did this. And so she just got no jail time. And I thought, this is where our society needs to go. We need to understand mistakes and accept them, that they happen and people don't know. It doesn't. I think if we can do that, we can get vets a little bit more willing to not be so afraid of what's going to happen if they say, I didn't know, I now know. I do that with kibble. I have people still to this day come back to me and go, well, Carrie, you recommended that kibble. And I'm like, well, yeah, 10 years ago. And I've learned since then. And I'm willing to accept what I didn't know back then. Yep. But we don't give that to our vets. Because like you said, they have this moment, they're supposed to know everything.
I sold so much prescription diet. The first job I was out of school, I didn't sell a whole lot of prescription diet, but it was a really low level practice. So I wanted to move on to bigger and better things. And I went to a really, what I considered a high quality practice, but literally every patient that walked in the door went out with a prescription diet. And we sold so much kibble and so much prescription food. And I worked there for 4.5 years, and I look back on it and go, oh my gosh, I feel bad. But, it's kind of like before I knew chiropractic and acupuncture, and I had all those animals with back problems that, here's my drugs. This is what I got to use. Oh, it didn't work. Okay, we're putting them down. And, so I could feel guilty about that, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And so now that I know, I do things differently. So, but what bothers me is the veterinarians who are not willing to look. Like when a veterinarian says to me, I'm using those isoxazoline drugs all the time on all my patients, I haven't seen one side effect. I'm sorry, if you have given out thousands of doses and you haven't seen a side effect, you have blinders on. You are not looking, you are not listening, you are not correlating. You have blinders on. And that's when I get angry and I just want to throw my phone. It's I'm done. I'm off social media. I'm not I see these things and I just want to strangle them and say, wake up. You're not looking. You're poisoning them without looking. And yes, there are hundreds of thousands of animals who are given these neurotoxins on their monthly or every 3-month basis, and they don't show any side effects that we know of.
Right.
But it's Russian roulette. At what point will they tip over? At what point? And maybe they never will. But how much are we shortening their lives? We don't know. Now, these chemicals have been out. So my first book, hey, Lori.
I haven't.
I'll have to. Lori, can you send me that personally? My first book, I wrote it in 2013, and in the spring of 2014, I had to update it because that's when the isoxazolines hit the market. So before I even sent it to the publisher, I said, wait, I have to put this in there because I saw these coming down the line, and I knew from the get-go we were in trouble. And so my book came out in 2014. So those chemicals have been on the market, the original ones, for 8 years. You would think in 8 years, it's been used enough that veterinarians would wake up enough that they would start asking questions and maybe being a little bit suspicious. And they're not. And that's what is so infuriating to me.
Yeah. No, I told you the story of those two Australian shepherds. I mean, completely just discrediting the fact. I'm always amazed when my clients tell me that they go to the vet, dog's having seizures, and the vet never asks them, like, what medication are you on? What food are you feeding? I just feel like if I had a seizure, the first question a doctor would ask me is, what medication are you on? Like, it just seems like that's the first question a doctor would ask a human. But it's almost like an avoidance. I don't want to ask you because then I don't want to lead you into thinking it could be the flea and tick medication that I sold you. Therefore,
I don't know. I the ones that have the blinders on, they don't think that, even though there's now a warning on the box that says, neurologic side effects. Right. I mean, it is on the freaking box.
Yeah.
but they still don't want to admit it. They still don't see that there's any correlation there. FDA saw enough correlation to make them change the label. That's a correlation.
And you know, they let them like write it in a way that it's not so awful, like you're saying, right? Like it's there, but of course it's not going to be like this causes seizures. It's just, it's crazy.
It is. Well, it's just so frustrating. Anyway, I think at some point, maybe, I don't know, when we talk to FDA, when Gene Dodds and Valerie and our whole team talked to FDA about the products.
Yeah.
And so this was a few years ago. They were like, "Oh, we don't have enough reports yet. We haven't had enough deaths yet." I'm like, "My God, how many is enough?"
Yeah, how many? Did they ever give you an answer? They're not going to, because they would sound stupid. Well, we want 6,527, and then we might pay attention. I don't know. I've seen so much of it that it's just heartbreaking. And I've seen dogs get off of it and do better. When I mention it, I'm like, what's the harm? I even told a client one time, look, I promise you, if you stop giving this to your dog and he gets fleas, I will personally pay for a free flea bath for him. Whatever we need to do, I will do whatever, but can we at least try it? So I've had a couple people take me up on that, because I'm like, just do it. Just stop giving them this much stuff and then asking me why your dog is sick all the time. I'm trying to tell you why you're sick all the time. It's awful. I am sending out invitations to several traditional veterinarians in the area, hoping, but I already know they won't. I did an event years ago. I did an event with Dr. Richard Patton, who came out, and I invited all of these veterinarians in the area, did it on a Sunday. It was free. I paid for lunch for them, even had champagne for them, and I got one veterinarian to show up. So
we'll see how fun. So you get any traditional vets to show up, and I stand up there and say the 10 worst drugs used in veterinary medicine on a routine basis. They're going to love me. I may not.
We'll get you some security. We'll get you some personal.
Can I get security and bulletproof vest? And I don't know.
They won't show up, but they won't show up. I do have a couple probably that are going to come. They are what I like to call on the fence of holistic. They're not quite there, but they're willing to come and listen, because I think they want to be there. They know they want to be there. They're just not sure how to go about it, because they're not taught it in veterinary school. So they need people like you and these other veterinarians to help guide them. That's why it's so important that you still do these talks and you're willing to communicate. And hopefully we get some veterinarians to come over to the other side, but it's a struggle, but I promise you'll be safe. I'll get you some big, strong guys to be on either side of you, so you can say whatever you want to say. So
it's funny when when Susan Thixton in our group got death threats surrounding an AFCO meeting 5 years ago, or maybe longer. I don't remember. Oh, he says it wasn't that long. And it was in San Diego, right? Because we flew to San Diego because we already had our airfare. We get to San Diego, and then Susan's like, "No, you can't attend the meeting. Like, there's a target on our backs. You can't attend the meeting."
Oh my!
And so my husband was like, "Well, if you're going to go to the meeting, I'm going to walk you in, and then I'm going to be standing there in the lobby to pick you up." I'm like, "Are you bulletproof?" I don't think you are.
Oh, yeah, but that's a sign of a good guy, right? Willing to take the bullet.
So none of us went to the meeting because we literally had death threats.
Oh my gosh, that's pretty scary. Well, I haven't sent out the invitation, so maybe I won't, because I don't need that stress.
I don't think your veterinarians are going to shoot me. I mean,
yeah, I don't think so.
They can throw rotten tomatoes. That's fine.
Well, hopefully not. The tickets are selling really well, so I'm very, very excited, and things are going exceptionally better than I had anticipated. So I owe that all to the 6 wonderful speakers that are. I keep telling everybody, I think we were all just biting at the bit to kind of get out and get out there and start speaking again. And I hired, I don't know if you even know this, but for you guys that are listening, I knew that we're putting a lot of information, a lot of really heavy information out to the guests that are going to be coming. So I hired a stand-up comedian who's going to be doing all of the introductions. He's going to MC it for us. So to kind of help give us some little bit of a break in between, because it is a lot of information. It's important.
Some levity after I stand up there and say, this is how this one's going to kill your dog. This one's how this one's going to kill your dog.
He's really good guy. He's really a funny guy, and I love stand-up comedy. So I thought, I want to bring these two things together. That's probably why I'm sick, because I was just in Vegas to see Tosh O. I saw Tosh in Vegas this weekend, and now I've got COVID. So, there's that. But I love stand-up comedy. And if I can, I've always said, and I learned when I was on the speech team, if you really want to have someone learn something, you want to make them laugh and make them cry in the same time. And when you can do that, you can motivate people in the best way. So I'm hoping that this event is going to just bring just such a group of people together that are going to make a difference and, redefine what we think is healthy. Because the amount of money, I work in rescue. I don't know if you know that, but most people know I also work in rescue. And so many of the animals that end up there are a lot of it to do with people can't afford it. They can't afford how sick the animals are. Vet visits are expensive. And so once a month, you have to go to the vet to do this and do that and do this. It gets so, so, so expensive. So trying to, I think about how much I spent, other than their food. Of course, I spend a lot of money on my pet's food, but they never go to the vet. So I'm very fortunate in that. Which leads me to your pup loaf I want to talk about. So I know that it is now being made by, what's the name of the company?
All Provide.
All Provide. So they're making the original pup loaf.
Yeah, so there was a lot of question about that when the recipe was posted on their website, because there's a couple really minor tweaks. But when you take something from making 5 pounds at a time to making 10,000 pounds at a time, you got to make a couple tweaks. But it's as close as we could come to the original pup loaf recipe. And so I came out with that recipe. The original recipe that was in my first book, the From Needles to Natural, actually used one of the Honest Kitchen base mixes, and they've changed them all around, so it's not even the same anymore, as the veggie base in it. And then I put the other things in there that I wanted. And so very shortly after that, I came out with the original, from scratch pup loaf recipe. And I never thought, and I didn't have computer programs and I didn't have calculators to figure it all out. And it was amazing how incredibly nutrient dense and how close it was to meeting all the AFCO requirements, which is the only thing we have to go by, that or NRC. Right. Just by, my brain saying, well, these are the things that should go together. So I got really lucky. And then, years later, when I finally had a computer program to run it through, I went, how about that? Pretty cool. So, but it ended up going viral, and literally pup loaf is made all over the world. And I see people posting in all these different groups all over the place, their ingredients and making it. And so it's been a fun journey. And I think probably, that's been about 8 years. I think probably for at least 5 years, because we started trademarking it. How long ago? Three or 4 years ago. And so we have a trademark for pup loaf. Good. And our trademark attorney, she said, okay, well, you've got to have it in production and for sale by the end of a 6-month period, or we have to ask for an extension. So we kept asking for an extension and asking for an extension. Finally, this past March, she said, this is your last extension. You cannot get any more. You have to have it on the market by September. Oh, wow. And so we've been friends with the folks at All Provide for a lot of years. And we've been kind of going back and forth with them about the potential of them making it. And so finally they got their nose to the grindstone, and we did too. And we came up with, the biggest thing that they had problems with was sourcing some of the ingredients. Sardines are seasonal, and we're buying like whole fish, not the little things in cans. And they're seasonal. So that was really hard for them to find. And they ended up ordering them from a couple of different sources, and both sources came through. So they have enough sardines to make a lot of pup loaf for a while. So we went down there last week because the initial run of pup loaf was being made last week. And so we filmed it from literally start to finish. And it was really fun. And I've seen them make food before, but to really see the process, it literally is a 5-day process, actually a little bit longer, but because you have to start thawing things a couple days before you want to grind. And watching that process from start to finish, the cleaning, the sterilization, there's so, like, I posted one thing and I said, this is like step 79 out of 150, because there literally are so many steps in the process. And there's so many cleaning steps that go in between each one of those processes, because every time you're going to reuse a bin or a bucket or a pan or the oven or the grinder, everything is completely taken apart and sanitized in between. So it was a really fun week. We had a great time. They're just an amazing group there, really good to work with, and just the commitment to, and I know a lot of these smaller, newer pet food, and newer, I'm saying in the last decade, committed to human grade ingredients, committed to doing the highest quality food. What they are doing is so far above what our pets have been given for decades. And just watching this process, it makes you realize the difference. So we're actually, I think my husband and I probably have, I don't know, a few hundred videos that our poor video editor is going to get stuck with. Once he finishes the Monkey's House Hospice course videos, which there's a few hundred of those, then we're going to put them on this and make like an hour-long, start to finish. This is how the pet food is made, and this is the processes that it goes to. And I think people will find it very interesting to see what the process should be.
Yeah, I was just going to say what it should be, because we know how kibble is made, because we got to get in and see that. And so, and the fact, I love just the transparency of it. Here's the videos. Yep. This is what we're doing. This is how we're doing. And we had talked right before the show, if we went down to some of these other manufacturing companies and knocked on the door and said, hey, I'd like to see your plant and do some videos, they would be like, not today. And you would never get in those doors.
Or not never.
Exactly. So it's so important to have the transparency. I think I looked into All Provide before. Do they not sell into retail?
They do, but the problem is West Coast shipping. So they will ship to the West Coast, but there's a $30 upcharge on the shipping to the West Coast, because it has to get there frozen, even though, they use 10 pounds of dry ice in a box. But so when we were there, we had a pretty long conversation with them about getting another warehouse. I think they're going to probably be looking in Colorado to get a warehouse, so then they could ship literally. And this is what Viva Raw has done. They just got a warehouse in Colorado. So, and Darwin's has a warehouse in Pennsylvania, and they're out of Washington. So if these companies who are kind of on one end of the country or the other, if they have another warehouse, so if they had a Colorado warehouse, they could literally ship truckloads out there for a lot lower cost. And then that warehouse could cover everything west of the Mississippi, and the warehouse here could cover everything east of the Mississippi. And then that keeps shipping prices down, particularly with fuel and trucking being so expensive right now. It's crazy for everybody. We just got slammed with more increases on our products that are coming in from New Zealand because of the shipping costs. So it's just, it is what it is in global supply chain right now. But yeah, they do have a lot of clients that have it shipped to California and the West Coast. And there are some retailers out there that have it, but it's just, the shipping is what becomes prohibitive.
Yeah, it ends up making it really hard, especially now with the costs of everything, to add that extra on top of it. So, but I would love, I hope they get a warehouse out here, because I would love to have the public.
I do too. They've got so many irons in the fire.
I have a little, like my own little shelf of Judy Morgan's everything, your books and all of your stuff is there. So to have your food there, would be really great too, just because it all encompasses everything. And it's just so important. Of course, I only sell really good food as it is, but I learned a long time ago that it doesn't matter, when companies fight, like, our food's the best. If genuinely speaking, we have these great foods, there's going to be dogs that don't like this one that might like this one. Maybe they don't like
Exactly.
it. Maybe they don't. So if we just work together, like,
Yeah.
you know, but I set up my store in a way that if someone walked in and said to me, what would you recommend? The answer is everything, because I don't carry everything that I wouldn't feed my own dog. But what your dog likes, I don't know.
Right. Our dogs have a rotation through about 5 different companies.
Yeah.
And part of it is because some companies offer proteins that I can't get from other companies.
Right.
Some of the people had complaints about Pup Loaf because it has chicken gizzards, which is a chicken muscle protein. It has beef and it has fish. So if you have a dog with an allergy to any one of those, that product's not going to work for your dog. But if you want to use All Provide products, they have a pork product, they have a beef product, they have a chicken, they have a turkey. So, it's like, well, don't yell at me because it has 3 different proteins in it. That's just what I chose to balance that out. And in all honesty, of my 4 dogs, 1 can eat it. I have 1 who cannot eat beef. She just regurgitates with beef. So she's not going to be able to eat it. And my other 2, 1 likes fish, but he doesn't like fish mixed with anything, so he won't eat it. And the puppy hates fish. So of my 4 dogs, I have 1 product. That's fine.
Yeah. It's I get that too, where people get really frustrated that why don't they do this or why don't they do that? And to that I say, this company doesn't, this company does. And we just
Exactly.
I try to have a really well-rounded, I have some cooked versions. I have some raw. I have some that are all meat that people can add their veggies in. Like, cause I don't know. I don't, like you're saying, of your 4 dogs, only 1 will eat that. And so I don't know, but I'm excited. I hope that they get a place out here.
I do too.
Yeah. Cause
I'll keep pushing.
Yeah, keep pushing. And if I can do anything, maybe they don't want to work with a distributor. Maybe they want to do themselves, their own.
They work with distributors on the East Coast. I think they've had problems with West Coast just because of transporting
how far it is already
amounts for the distributors. I think that's a bit tricky. So because I know that Viva Raw, they're in North Carolina, really right around the corner from us. And so they don't use distributors. And so they went out and got a warehouse in Colorado to make it easier for their national shipping. So, and Darwin's did the same thing. They came to the East Coast and found a warehouse. So, I think that
hope that the FDA doesn't come down on everybody. These smaller companies tend to be able to go under the radar a little bit, which is what we want. But I worry, when they start spreading out and becoming more national.
The bigger you get, maybe the bigger you get, the bigger the problem. I don't know. I asked them at All Provide when we were there. I said, so, have you had any interactions with the FDA? And they said, yeah, they came in, they did their inspection, they took their samples, and no problems.
Good.
So, that's great.
Yeah, keep our fingers crossed. Maybe the FDA is getting sick of it because they've been coming down so hard for so long on so many of these companies. Maybe they're tired of the fight. The amount of salmonella in human food, and then nothing in pet food, but human.
Well, it's the difference between USDA versus FDA, so that's the problem.
It's just crazy. So we have the event coming up. It's coming faster than I thought. It feels like months and months and months ago that we planned this. And actually I started planning it 4 years ago, but COVID happened. I actually had it. We were picking the date and it was like October 2020, I think it was, when we finally had kind of nailed down the date. Thank God I hadn't put any money down on the hotel yet. God knows they would have done. But now it's coming up. I'm like, I can't believe it's here. And just give us a little sneak peek of what you're going to be talking about on October 1st.
Well, I gave you my topic of the 10 worst, most dangerous drugs that are routinely used in veterinary practice. And it's kind of funny because some of them, like there were so many that it's not like individual drugs as much as it's categories of drugs. Yeah. And then individual drugs under the category. But I already put my PowerPoint together for it. And like, I want to sit there and cry when I look at it and look at the side effects. And, again, if clients we're told the potential side effects. Like if pet owners would stand there in the vet office and just say, what side effects should I watch for with this drug? First of all, if they tell you there are none, run. But I mean, I used to have clients who would make me bring the drug handbook and let them read the entire monograph in there before they would make their decision. But of course, I had a very different practice from your normal traditional practice. But I think that people should ask, what are the potential side effects? And, do you have the drug insert for that? Because they have the drug inserts for everything. They get the drug inserts with everything they buy. They may only have one copy for a whole bottle of metronidazole, but they could certainly make you a copy.
Right. Isn't it crazy though? I always think like when humans get drugs, we get the little packet and then in it is all of the side effects, but
things to watch for.
Yeah.
Drug interactions. Like you never, people don't ask, is this going to interact with any other medications my pet's on? Anything I should know?
Yeah. It's crazy. People like, it's funny. I had this cat staying with me and she has cancer and she was with us for months. And in between, she had to go to the vet to get her chemo that she was getting. And so the first time we went, took the cat, a friend picked up the cat and took the cat to the vet. And the cat comes back with its prescription bottle. And on the bottle, it says how much liquid to give the cat. But when we open up the bottle, it's not a liquid, it's a pill. So I called the vet because I was like, I'm not real comfortable giving this cancer cat something that says this. And they were like, oh no, it's okay. Sometimes the company sends us the liquid and sometimes they send us the pill. And I said, well, can you just ask the vet? I just need to be sure this isn't my cat for one. Then next time we took the cat, they sent us back an empty bottle. There was no pill in it. And I thought, we have to keep our eyes open. I mean, people, like I said, we have to be able to accept that people will make mistakes and forgive them for those mistakes. But you can't just assume there's no side effects because there isn't an insert in there. You can't assume that the bottle is correct when clearly that bottle wasn't correct when it's telling me to give liquid when I'm looking at a pill. I'm like, this isn't right. So we have to be willing to accept that all drugs come with some kind of side effect. So if you knew that, right, just know that they all have a side effect. You better find out what they are before you get your pet. And so,
I mean, know what to watch for so that, for instance, if you didn't know that an NSAID could cause intestinal bleeding, you wouldn't know when your dog has a dark tarry stool. Oh crap, he might have an intestinal ulcer. And by the way, it's Saturday night. He had that funny looking stool. Maybe I'll call the vet on Monday. He could be dead by Monday.
Yeah. Such a good, oh my gosh, good analogy. Exactly. You won't know that stool could be much more serious than I know. We got to do better. But that's why we're here, right? That's why we're here. We're all trying to educate and you just keep fighting the fight, Dr. Morgan. And it's just such a blessing to have, people like yourself that are willing. She's at a hotel, guys, right now on vacation.
I'm on vacation.
She's on vacation in a hotel room, willing to come on here, answer questions, and just talk about this. It's so important. It matters. I want you to know that it matters. It's making a difference. So I thank you. And I cannot wait till October. It's going to be good.
Well, we have our airfare, so we're definitely coming.
Yeah. No, I saw that. I haven't, if you don't know, I've been through a whirlwind of shit in the last 2 months. So my brother's death threw me. I've been kind of going through some stuff, and then now I have COVID. So there's that. But
it's fine. I'm just letting you know we will be there.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a place for us to stay, I'll find one. Just let me know.
Oh, no. You guys are all, I just need I just need the dates.
I did. We're coming in Thursday and leaving Monday.
Okay. I got to book the hotel. So other than that.
It's one of those things with airfare being so crazy. And after Gwen missed the flight, everybody missed the flight to Albany and didn't have luggage.
Right.
We both said, you know what, we're going out a day. If something happens on Thursday, that gives us Friday to scramble around and make some connections. And then the same with coming home. We're like, you know what, we are not going to scramble trying to get out of there on Sunday. So.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you guys are coming out. If everybody comes out Thursday, we'll all go to dinner a day early so that we can have a day to relax. But there's lots of stuff to do in Orange County. The weather should be perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a question from Kelly. Sorry, Kelly, we were getting ready to wrap this up, but I have a female inside only cat, 1.5 year old, that is spraying. Any suggestions on how to stop it? She's not fixed, however. They will not do it without her receiving an hour to date.
And I think an up-to-date rabies
Oh, an
vaccine.
up-to-date rabies vaccine. Oh, yeah.
Find another veterinarian, because I do recommend getting that. She's old enough. I do recommend getting her spayed, because mammary cancer in cats is a big deal. Big deal. So, if you go to our Facebook page from last week, Gwen, while I was on vacation, went really crazy with the different kinds of spay and the different kinds of neuter and vasectomy, and it was a whirlwind, and I was just like, oh my God. But I do recommend, and I did a thing with the 2 crazy cat ladies last week as well, while I was at All Provide. So the spraying, I would try things. First of all, make sure she doesn't have a urinary tract infection. But I would try things like the Feel Away diffusers. I would try maybe some flower essences. I mean, she's doing a normal cat behavior for a female cat who probably is going through some heat cycles. She's being a cat. We don't want her to do that.
Kelly, if you can tell us where you are, maybe one of us has a vet that we can recommend that isn't going to make you go through all of that. If you let us know where you are, I don't know.
It's crazy. Inside only, and they won't do it without a rabies vaccine.
I know. I have a vet out here who told a client cat that her cat needed a rabies vaccine. And she goes, oh, my cat doesn't go anywhere, lives indoors. She had a rabies actually when she was little. And she's like, I just don't really want to. And he actually told her, well, if a bat gets in your house, then the bat could bite your cat and then you could get rabies. I live in Orange County, California. Like, I am not in anywhere near where a bat is going to be. And he told her that. And then I asked her, I go, did you do it? And she goes, no, there's no bats over here. I'm not going to get a bat in my house. She lives in a condo complex. So, but it was interesting how far this veterinarian would go to try to scare her into getting this rabies vaccine on her cat, who's, at this point was older and certainly didn't need it. So, but anyway, Kelly, if you want, you can type in where you are, and then I'll look back at this. I'm going to go ahead and let Dr. Morgan go so she can enjoy her vacation with her husband. But if you want to type it in, Kelly, I can look up some vets in your area maybe, and we can find you one that won't require a rabies vaccine. I always found it interesting to give the vaccine at the time you're spaying too, right? Like veterinarians always
don't want to do that. And by the way, it takes at least a couple of weeks for the body to actually make immunity when the vaccine is given. It's not instant, so giving it at the time of surgery makes no sense. It's not protecting anyone, and it's just causing a stress for the animal. So, that's what I was going to say.
I was taught that as a vet tech to tell people, oh, well, they can't be in the facility without the vaccine because we have to protect the other animals. Do you know how many people I told that to?
Protect the other animals. So does that mean you have, like, all the animals are just running around the building willy-nilly biting each other?
No, they were. This was a vet hospital, but I just felt
the stupid stuff. Well, and he has to be up to date on the vaccines to protect our staff. Well, if he's not up to date on vaccines, he has to come in, and your staff has to work with him to give him the vaccine. So you're already exposing, like, whatever.
It goes on and on and on until you just can't believe that someone with this much education and how hard it is to get into veterinarian school actually can't think their way out of that paper bag they just got themselves into.
Drink the Kool-Aid.
I know it's hard. So, but anyway,
the first person you work for has these arbitrary rules, and then you just carry them through your career.
No, that's exactly what happens. That's why when I hire new people, like I have a girl working for me right now, she's really young and she wants to be a veterinarian. And I hired her because I was like, I'm going to teach you some stuff before. I'm not a veterinarian, I get it, but I'm going to teach her some holistic things. And oh, by the way, I'm using, thanks to you, actually, I'm using the TheraClean machine, which I now have. And I am so excited. So I can't wait to teach people about, especially soon to be veterinarians, those who want to go to vet school, look at what we can do without using chlorhexidines and destroying all of the skin biome and doing all this stuff. I'm hoping I can get in their head before the vet school gets in, but we'll see.
Good.
We'll see. Anyway, well, you have a good night, everybody. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. Lori, thanks for being behind the scenes. It's just means such a big thing. Love the micro bubbles. Michelle says, yeah, they're amazing. They're really, if you guys are listening to this and you don't know about microbubbles and you have a dog who has any kind of a skin issue, I highly recommend you find a groomer or a veterinarian, maybe might have one of these machines. I don't know. They're like $10,000 for the machine. So I don't think people are out there buying them, but they're well worth it if you can find a groomer that has it. And that was a recommendation from Dr. Morgan. And I thank you so much because I've already seen some results. So it's really great.
Right.
So
good.
All right, guys, you guys have a good evening, and we will see you next Wednesday at 4:00 Pacific Standard Time. Dr. Morgan, have a great rest of your vacation. Say hi to your husband. I know he's right off to the right to you. Thanks for sharing her with us on your vacation. It means a lot. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.